Comments have been, let me just repeat for those of you who didn't hear the first part. Welcome again to Reason with Rattigan. Uh, I'm your host, Wilfred the Rebel Rattigan, on www.reggaeglobalradio.com. I was just saying that my YouTube channel is up and running, and I've been told that 5 installments have been uploaded so far. So check them out, like, share, and subscribe. In fact, this is the first time I'm saying this because I'm not a technical person. You know, I just love to talk and love to do research and love to do a whole bunch of things, except dealing with computers and technical things. But I have a very, very good support system led by none other than the illustrious, the illustrious, the illustrious. I don't know if I should have same name. Kevin Stewart. So him keep me honest and him keep me going. A lot of times we have some delays and we have to rely heavily on Kevin. Otherwise, this program would never go off. Even late it wouldn't go off. But anyway, check out the uploads because it doesn't cost a thing for you except an investment of your time. And you don't need a financial house to do this. And you know what I'm referring to, right? SSL. Today, my panel will reason about the latest news coming out of Jamaica. And as usual, we invite you, the listening audience, the viewing audience, our people, our family, to join and reason with us on the phone. The number is 667 369 8569. 667 369 8569. Family, as a reminder, please tune into Reggae Global Radio. This station from midnight tonight until 2 a.m. and relax with a rebel. This will be the third broadcast and the support has been overwhelming. The chat room has been lively and interesting. It's a beautiful thing. And I encourage you to tell your friends, relatives, and associates. Tell them. And all of you, come join me for some smooth, relaxing music. After we finish with this program, we're all wound up and tight, so it's nice to just kind of sit back and just let things just roll off of your shoulders. And the timing is good because it's late at night, Again, the program is called Relax with the Rebel on this radio station, and it's tonight at midnight until 2 a.m. Make it a date, and don't be late. Well, today, the panel will be comprised of Conrad, the fireman, host of the popular Straight Up News Talk 93 FM out of Jamaica, and Jeffrey, the People's Defender Tavares from Roots FM out of Jamaica, and he's also the host of Make We Talk, the trending YouTube program. During our last hour today, from 5 to 6, we will be joined by Dr. Maurice Miles, a very prominent dentist in the Washington, D.C. area, who has established a very productive relationship with, I believe it's the UTEC Dental School, and also the Ministry of Health and Wellness. He will talk to us about dental health and dental education, and he's got some interesting things to say because he's here, meaning he's here in the U.S., and he's also back in Jamaica, back and forth helping out, and he's done some marvelous things, but I won't steal his thunder. I'll have him explain to you what he's doing. And then, of course, please call us, jump in the chat room. Carolyn, I see you in the front seat already. Papa Jesus, take the keys. And Kevin still ready for the rebel. Okay. Shout out time. We're big on that. We have to recognize our people. Continued prayers and blessings for Mama Eileen, Papa Trevor, Ma P and family, and, of course, Mrs. Nelson. Big shout out to my die-hard supporters like Donna from Meadowbrook and Donovan from Rallington, who constantly critique the program to ensure that I do not deviate at least too much from the message and the mission. Thanks to all of you. Big shout out to the Reggae Global family. Joanna, Ed, the Taliban, still so. Carolyn, of course, my Papa Jesus lady who constantly pray for me, you know, and I tell myself, why Papa Jesus, I'll take the keys. The Meadowbrook crew, the Firehouse crew, man like Eddie, Dubai Danny, Bunny Jump, Tigo, Eri, and Sparky. Everybody have a wire them name, you know. So I said going to the ghetto. The Chenpangs from Queens, Admiral Mijena, and the crew from Rollington. And last but not least, all the hardworking, dedicated members of the JCF, including that hardworking, dedicated chairman, Mr. Rowan James. Mr. Chairman, here's my message to you today. God willing, and with the diaspora's help and support, in the fullness of time, you and your members will be afforded the proper respect, as we say in Jamaica, proper respect and much needed resources, including remuneration to address the growing crime issues in Jamaica. God bless you, sir, and continue to keep up the good work. And, well, I'm not to tell you, sir, you know, stay steadfast and continue to be bold and brave, because that's who you are. And we expect nothing less from you. Updates regarding my attempts to get information from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and the Ministry of Finance under the Access to Information Act. I'm pleased to advise that 2 cases have been opened with the tribunal. And now it's a matter of time before I represent the people of Jamaica and get justice for them. Because this government proclaimed itself to be open and transparent, and we're going to put that to the test. Well, we're putting it to the test right now, and so far we're finding out that that's not the case. And that's why we're pushing, and we're going to the tribunal. And if we don't get justice there, then of course, we'll have judicial interference, which is not a good thing for the government, because then the media will be all over it. And of course, you know, we have some links at some places, including the State Department, and we will try to influence those links to get things done for the Jamaican people. Although I'm patient and have time on my hands, I'm also determined not to wait forever. So I already have a plan B that is waiting to be implemented. So stay tuned. Back in, this is just a dovetail on what I've just said. Back in July of 2022, I discussed the concept of this program with a very prominent Jamaican businessman. I won't call his name because I don't think he would want me to. I think of him as a friend, and I hope that he feels the same way about me. But we have a very cordial relationship. And among the things I was concerned about was content for the show. You know, where am I going to get the material? And he assured me that Jamaica, and he actually used this phrase, content rich. He said Jamaica was content rich. And he said, you are going to have an embarrassment of riches. And then he pointed me in a certain direction and advised that my biggest problem would be in deciding what stories to report, because he said there's so many stories coming out of Jamaica on a weekly basis. The problem with having so many stories and issues to discuss and deal with is that as soon as you start to talk about one, it's overshadowed by another. And we see it time and time again. And also, we cannot ignore the media's willful attempt, in some instances, to downplay certain stories. For example, we don't hear much about Donna Lee anymore. We don't hear about the murder investigation of certain people of interest. There's a man who was found dead outside the bedroom of a prominent attorney. We don't hear anything more about that. The plane that crash landed off of Rocky Point, black box missing, contents missing, passengers, pilot, everybody gone. And all we hear is the people who were on board the aircraft, they've left the island. Nothing more. The drugs seized at the Ian Fleming Airport in Boscobel, St. Mary. Nothing more. The plan to resettle the citizens whose homes were demolished in Clifton. Nothing more. The unexplained distribution of the fertilizer that Morocco gifted to Jamaica. 2.6 million pounds, my people. Nothing. Erica, big up yourself. The unexplained and missing COVID funds from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Nothing. In fact, I believe that the minister is a friend of his, a female. I believe she was awarded a contract and it didn't go through proper procedures. I mean, fireman and the defender, they will talk more if they want to about that because they know more about that story than I do. But the essence is that she received this contract and it didn't go through proper procedures based on what I'm being told. And the story just died. The required filing concerning the money that went into Minister Johnson Smith's failed bid to become the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Nothing more. And that's one of the things I'm fighting for, people. We need to know. I mean, if you're going to say that your government is transparent, open, and it's like an open book, then act in accordance. But we're not seeing that on many fronts. The Bulla scandal, the fireman knew that's one of his babies. Him know about that program there quite well. And I'm sure, before the program is over, he'll refer to it. The scandal involving the Ministry of Education, child welfare agencies, and the American man who allegedly molested several young girls. If you notice, that story was running, and then soon as the SSL story came on board, you're not more about it. The question is, who's working on that case and what developments are there? We haven't heard anything. And that's the problem with Jamaica. We hear nothing about developments. We hear about a story. They'll run it for a few days, a week or so, and then it's overtaken by another story. And then you don't hear anything more about it. Nobody is doing any follow-up. Of course, the SSL scandal is front and center because of, and we know why, Usain Bolt, and also the amount of money involved. We will address the recent developments in that case today. And I can assure you that you'll be on the edge of your seats because my two guests here, they've done extraordinary work in trying to ferret out the facts. And let me tell you something about the facts. When truth is hurled against falsehood, falsehood perishes. You know why? Because falsehood is by its nature bound to perish. Falsehood can't live on under the scrutiny and the light of truth. Cannot. However, before we move on to the SSL story, I would like to spend some time going over the list of worst performing ministers in Jamaica. And we are talking about ministers Chang, Williams, Tufton, and Johnson Smith. The Observer, a few weeks ago, dubbed Minister Johnson Smith as the worst performing minister in the cabinet. And they based it on her failed bid for the Secretary General's position. But that's I wouldn't do that based on that because she has plausible deniability there because she didn't nominate herself. She was nominated by the Prime Minister. So I a lot of that I mean, yes, she did some things that were not normal, like having people fly from at taxpayers' expense, fly from Europe to Africa to take photographs when she had people in her delegation who could have done that. But that's not, I'll overlook that. I shouldn't, but for the purposes of this exercise, I will. And here's why. She's also involved in the establishment of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council and the election and appointment of the members, despite U.S. Foreign Agents Registration Act requirements and implications. She going to make some of them people go to prison, mark my words. And then probably have to come to me if you go defend them. I'm not going to charge them. Not charge them enough money because I warn them and tell them, say, listen, get the legal counsel opinion on the roles and the responsibilities of these people because they're living in America. And if they're associated with a foreign entity, they have to report it. I know of one person right now who's involved with some things in Jamaica, and that person took the time and effort to contact uh, Department of Justice and to say, look, I'm involved with some folks in Jamaica, and there's no money being exchanged. It's just strategic meetings and so on and so forth. And that person was told, you have to report it. And the reporting procedures, as best as I understand it, it's like a few pages for the first one, then they review it, and then they send you like 20 pages after that. And then you have to give them your whole life story. So, Ambassador Audrey Marks and the rest of the Jamaican presence, official presence in the US, get legal counsel advice before you start putting these people to work and having them, have meetings with you, and you discuss this and you discuss that. Because I've read the mandate of the diaspora council, and it's a lot of subjects that you're asking these folks to discuss with you, and some of these topics, they touch on American interests. But whether they do or not, the fact is that if they live in America and they're having discussions with you, they have to report it, or they should get guidance as to whether or not they should report it. And when you get the guidance from a lawyer, and make sure you get a lawyer who's familiar with FARA requirements. FARA meaning Foreign Agents Registration Act. Make sure that you get it in writing. And when you get it in writing, you publish it in the diaspora so that the whole world know, including Department of Justice, that you have been scrutinized, and it has been determined that you do not need to file on the FARA. Or if they say you need to file, you still publish that as well so people know what they're getting into. Because some of these people, they don't know what they're getting into. And don't take my advice. Go and get advice from someone who is very familiar with the FARA requirements. In fact, you don't even have to go and pay for it. You can go to Department of Justice yourself. There's a unit there. The FARA unit. You can go there and explain the issue to them, and they will give you guidance if you don't want to go and pay for an attorney. But by all means, go ahead and do it. You have been forewarned. So when them come and put the bangle pound, only can call me. But as Anthony Redrose say, can't say me never did I warn you. Oh Lord, me tell you. Remember that. The same minister, Johnson Smith, she's responsible also for collaborating with the PM in the appointment of several political appointees to some serious and senior positions overseas. Now, these people, they're nothing but supporters, financial supporters of the government. In other words, them give money for the election and things like that, and so they're rewarded in many instances. And it's not the right thing to do. And what do I mean by not the right thing to do? Yes, you can give, somebody support you and you want to give them. Yeah, but if you go back and you look at the amount of political appointees and then compare them to career diplomats in Jamaica, you're going to be surprised at how many of them we have. And they don't know what they're doing for the most part. I personally know of a couple of them. Well, no, not a couple, several. And they're not doing a service to Jamaica in their positions overseas. I can tell you that. So, in fact, some of them, they're just inexperienced and they're ignorant. And Jamaica is not being served well on the world stage. And that's too bad. Also, the same minister has not advanced the promise to seat a diaspora member in the Senate. She made this promise. I was there when she made this promise. She also has not advanced the promise to allow the diaspora to vote in Jamaica elections. Now, them come and them tell you all of them things in the diaspora. Why? To regale us with stories? No. To humor us? No. Money and support. Them come here and them tell us this and them get us all in a frenzy and say, yeah, we'll get a seat and we'll have representation. And then them say, give me our money, and you give them some money. As my good friend Jeffrey would say, the defender, the time is right for us now to question those things. We have to question them. We can't just blindly follow these people. We're in the age of information. We're so, everything, just about anything you want to know is a free, and in most instances, freely available on the internet. But you have to be careful how you search, though, and what you believe. But information is there, right? So we're not going to allow that to happen around here much longer. And when I say much longer, I'm talking like no. We're not gonna let that happen, because my mother never cleaned people's house. My mother was a maid. I tell people that all the time. Very good maid too. She always get recommendations for go clean white people's house. And my mother did that job. She did it, of course, for survival. But she was driven. She was driven to do it because of me. I'm her firstborn. And she and I, we share the same birthday. And as I've said many times before, she used to tell me, she said, my pet name, as I said, pet name, everybody have a pet name in Jamaica, Junior. And she said, Junior, if you decide to go to school and study and make something out of yourself, I will sell the word begins with D, underwear. She said, I will sell that. She said, I will sell that as long as you stay in a school and learn and study. And Mama, I know say you're proud of me. I know you up there and you look down and you say, boy, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to stop make you proud, Mama. Not going to stop make you proud. You and the people them who live in that place, in that place. What them call Garrison, Ghetto, them place. Place like Waterhouse, Tivoli, Jungle, Rima, Bower Banks. Them place there. Back to. Right. So that's why we are fight, Mama, because we could have walked away and just say, boy, we're okay in life, we're comfortable and things like that, and forget about everybody. But this resonates with me. This is my soul. This. Can't forget the people behind that. And so my success is not complete success until I've assisted these people back here. Open their eyes, take off the scales so that they can see a brighter day and a future. So that's where we are. Defender and fireman. Let's reason about the list of worst performing ministers. And we won't address the ones who are performing well or seemingly well. And they're very few, by the way. And the reason why we're not going to do that is because that's what they're supposed to do. I learned this in the FBI. You don't compliment somebody when they do what they're being paid to do. I'm not free. They're being paid to do it. It's a sad day when you big up people for doing the job that they're paid to do. But to show you the bar is so low, right? One of the best performing ministers is Ed Bartlett. And look, I like what he's doing. But is he a superb minister? That's questionable. I don't know if he's a superb minister. But compared to the flock of failures that we have, this man is outstanding. And so now we have to big up Ed Bartlett for doing his job. Why? Because the others aren't. And it's clear. It's blindingly obvious of what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, I'm being joined now by Jeffrey, the People's Defender Tavares, and of course Conrad, the fireman O'Brien. So, gentlemen, welcome to Reason with Rattigan. And we're going to reason this evening. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here, sir.
All right. No, the first person I want to talk about, and we're going to run through them quick because we're going to spend some time on this SSL thing here, and I know, and miscellaneous things, because I know you have a lot to say. But let me just throw something out to you, coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Someone sent this to me. This gentleman, Honorable Leslie Campbell, right?
Yes, the Minister of State.
Yes,
He's the
sir.
Minister of State,
Minister of
junior
State within the
minister.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. He's claiming that Jamaica's diaspora engagement strategy has been recognized as a model for engagement by several countries and international organizations. And as a result of their successful program, he said Jamaica has been invited to share its expertise with a view to building global best practices. Is this man crazy?
I think as I always said, Mr. Rattigan.
There's something going on. Your mic scratchy. The transmission.
Are you hearing me now?
Much better.
Yes. As I always said, Mr. Rattigan, that it seems like termite eat up some of these politicians' brain. Or they do not know what they're living in.
Uh-huh.
In what way? What was he thinking to make such a statement?
I don't know. The fireman, did Jeffrey pose that question? What was he thinking? What do you think he was thinking when he made such a statement?
Well, pretty much, maybe it's just a part of the whole grandstanding that you find that politicians do, some of our politicians do, without even having any great regard or respect for the intellectual quotient of the Jamaican people. And maybe, as some people would say in local parlance, just basically disrespect, have no regard for people's common sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as a result of that, they believe that they can say anything and people just buy it hook, line, and sinker. But, so that would be my immediate response to that. But just on a side here, Mr. Rattigan, since we understand that persons listen to us across all platforms and depending on us to bring them up to speed. Of course, for those who are not watching or not keeping abreast, there are some development taking place in the United States of America. Of course, the U.S. fighter jet shot down a Chinese spy balloon. And that is indeed quite seismic because we're seeing some amount of flexing of muscles taking place on the international scenes.
Okay. Good. The reason why I brought this up is because he's the Minister of State and he works directly for Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith. And this man should know better because it was, I think, less than 2 years ago or thereabouts when Minister Chan came on and he had a woefully disappointing town hall meeting. Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rattigan, you see, I am not surprised, I'm not surprised because if you have your boss, your leader, spreading misinformation, then certainly you're going to follow suit. We heard the Prime Minister over and over saying that, listen, the Jamaican financial sector is number one in the Caribbean. And it is not true. It's not true.
Well, what's false about that? What's false about that?
Well, when you look at it, we are about. I don't know if we're in the top 10 in terms of the top financial markets in the Caribbean. However, what I know is that over the years, Jamaican financial sector have made some strides, and it brings me to the point where I want to say to our people that we're not, as I said last week, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, and I know we are on the foreign minister with the junior minister making the point that he made, but it just permit me to say it because I love to tidy things up.
Please, go ahead.
Rather than people running away with things and accuse me of saying certain things, because I understand my responsibility as a Jamaican not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the sector, all in all, has very, very good players in there. And we must understand that you have financial investment houses that are sticking to their due diligence and doing proper work. And I would still invite people to participate and invest their money there. Granted, at the end of the day, the choice is theirs. and I'm still getting my source overseas, and you know my credible source there, Mr. Rattigan, still saying to me that people are still jetting into Jamaica as we speak to remove their money. So the confidence has certainly gotten hit there. But back to the foreign affairs scenario there, because all of this tied in. Because remember now we're talking about persons, people with their money overseas and so on, and the foreign affairs ministry, along with the ambassador or the consular general, all over the globe, will have to basically do some good public relations work in order to recalibrate and get us back to the center of gravity as it relates to the financial sector, which is a major backbone of the Jamaican economy. So it behoves the minister, the junior minister in this case, not to just grandstand and say things flippantly, but give information that is certainly timely and credible, because there are much more scrutiny on Jamaica, every word that comes out of the ministry, the various ministry, but let alone the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at this time. So I really don't know what would basically, cause the junior minister, Mr. Campbell, to make such a erroneous statement, in my view.
Yeah, as I said, it should be expected to some degree, but for him to say it and then have it published, I mean, I'm kind of troubled by that, because this has been broadcasted across the globe, and so if we say people look at us like laughing stocks, then that's sad, but it's also true, and it's also avoidable. Again, when truth is hurled against falsehood, falsehood perishes, because falsehood is by its nature bound to perish. And here's another case where falsehood has perished. And I mean,
truth.
Go ahead.
So the truth, they are swim on water like oil, man. See it there, you see it? You see it? Look at it. You see it, Jeffrey? See it true there? Afloat on it like oil.
Jeffrey, before we move off of this topic with this junior minister, is there anything you want to add to this?
It proved to us that we're a lack of governing in Jamaica. We're a lack of leadership. And the same way when you have Everald Warmington can come out and said such a derogative thing against the former leader and former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Bruce Orrick Golding. And the Prime Minister says nothing about it. To show you that Jamaica is in crisis. We're a lack of leadership in our country.
Well, the Prime Minister hasn't said a lot about a lot of things lately. He's been very, very quiet, like a church mouse. So, we'll have to scrutinize that silence as well, because you cannot be silent if you're a leader and you represent almost 3 million people. You have to, at some point, you're going to have to speak to them to reassure them that, your leadership is intact. And go ahead.
But Mr. Rattigan, if you have a man who believes that he's the Dan of all Dans, and all the others are Donovans, if you have a man who believes that he's a dictator, what do you expect?
Well, that's exactly what Conrad is saying. What do you expect? You shouldn't expect much, but at the same time, we have to kind of like alert the people of Jamaica that this is
absolutely, Mr. Rattigan, and that's why as it relates to Mr. Warmington, you can't help mentioning him. However, I basically kind of skip over him, because what we saw from Warmington is vintage Warmington. My disapproval or my disappointment, as I said last week, and I repeat, is as it really is with the Prime Minister and other members of the cabinet, and indeed the Jamaica Labour Party, rank and file members, and so on. Because we are talking about not the former Prime Minister, but a former Prime Minister, because we have several former Prime Ministers.
Right.
So a former Prime Minister and a former leader of the Jamaica Labour Party. And certainly, in my opinion, it is very, very disrespectful to see, especially the Prime Minister, who one could say was anointed by Mr. Bruce Golden, and he sat there quiet up to now. I don't know if Jeffrey hear anything. I don't know if you hear anything, any form of condemnation as it relates to Mr. Warmington's utterances. But I haven't.
But do you think you're going to hear anything about anybody condemning Warmington?
No.
That's the point.
None of them is going to make a condemnation of Warmington's speech about anything. When he shows a bunch of journalists his middle finger, did anybody come out and say anything about it?
Yeah,
no.
I mean, this one is like it's like a loose cannon.
No, and that is why
the time has come, gentlemen, that the Jamaican people must tell Everald Warmington, it's time for you to take a seat. Take away yourself. You're a disgrace to the country of Jamaica. You're a disgrace to the Parliament of Jamaica. And it's time for you to go.
Well, let me just jump on what the fireman said. This is not the first time he said something as outrageous as this, and the people didn't ask him to go. So let me ask you this, Mr. Tavares. Why do you think the people will ask him now?
Based on some people who I'm speaking to in the avalanche of society, the vum vavon, the vum vavin, they are saying it's time for this man to go. But they will not come out and say it publicly. Because what? Their parties in there and they party this and they party that. So I told them point blank, my gearbox mash up, you can need a 7 or 11. Need a first, second, or third. It was neutral. And I'm saying this afternoon on Reggae Global Radio, Regent Rattigan, Everald Warmington need to step aside. Just like the Minister of Finance need to go.
All right, we'll get to him. We'll get to him soon. But
All
let me tell you what.
Let me just
all right,
quickly
address that because we're pressed for time and I need to move on to another subject.
Weigh in quickly. You see, sometimes we have to zero in on the critical area. The fact is that we knew that Mr. Warmington is not going to get up and go. Mr. Warmington was elected by the people of Southwest St. Catherine by a nice majority. They have regard for Mr. Warmington, irrespective of his disrespect. They have shown over and over that they'll vote for him. The fact is that we have a prime minister who is Mr. Warmington's boss. He operates out of the prime minister's office as the minister responsible for roads and works in Jamaica. The prime minister, by a stroke of a pen, can do the right thing and start showing some strength there and remove Mr. Warmington from his cabinet position.
Don't forget that.
So that's where my emphasis would be.
Okay.
We have to hold the prime minister accountable on these things.
All right,
he can fight Mr. Warmington today. People have thought he can't remove him as MP. He can't remove him as MP, but he can fire him as minister. He must exercise his responsibility if the people of Jamaica and the diaspora should take him serious.
All right, I think there is a provision for recall where the voters can actually recall him.
There's none. We don't.
All right,
and
the second thing is that the prime minister cannot do all of these things without first conferring with the real big man in Jamaica, who is the Governor General. So we still have
No, Mr. Rattigan, you're absolutely incorrect.
Okay, correct
You're
me.
incorrect on what I'm saying. The prime minister name, appoint, and disappoint cabinet ministers.
Right.
He doesn't need any approval from the Governor General to do so. Right? He can fire a cabinet minister forthwith. He needs, in terms of being a member of parliament, he can't remove one as the member of parliament.
Right.
But as it relates to the minister, he has that sole responsibility.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let me go back to my constitution and I'll double check before this program is over. We'll do a fact check and we'll see if the Governor General.
You can take that to the bank.
Okay.
Trust me.
Yeah, but not SSL. I hope that's not the bank you're sending me to. That financial institution. Anyway, let's move on. We have 15 minutes. Let's move on to the Ministry of Health. Mr. Tavares, what do you have to say about the the Minister of Health, Mr. Tufton, and the way he's running that ministry. I mean, they designated him as one of the worst performing ministers. And he was, at one point, I believe, the rising star, one of the rising stars in the party.
My views on the goodly gentleman, the Minister of Health. I don't think when you're selecting your cabinet, when it comes down to health, education, and security, you cannot put a person who doesn't have any knowledge of health as Minister of Health.
Right.
Secondly, the goodly gentleman has become a distasteful minister, in a sense wherein there are so many scandals behind his name. And when you have a Ministry of Health running, and our nurses and our doctors are leaving the health sector, and the hospitals look like rivet and dump under his leadership, then something is fundamentally wrong somewhere. And it's time for us in this country, that we call Jamaica, the land of my birth. I came here by labor pain, not by airplane. Jamaica is my home. And the time has come for us in this country, whether it be PNP or JLP, to say to these politicians, if you go in there, if we elect you to lead, then lead.
Okay.
The Minister of Health hasn't done anything to show he's leading the health sector properly. Millions gone down the drain. Millions gone missing. Where's the $50,000 that was donated by the diaspora?
That's a good question.
Or the $50 million?
That's a good question.
Where did it disappear to?
The diaspora is still waiting for a response.
Funds? Where's the donor funds was given to the Ministry of Health during the coronavirus saga? Where's the money? There's no accountability in this country. And the time we take voting for party, we vote for country, not party. The Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party hasn't done a bloody thing for this country. If we check the amount of mismanagement of funds by the two political parties, it could build a brand new Kingston Public Hospital. The amount of money that gone down the drain. My good friend Conrad O'Brien always say, I must have said it, but no better barrel, no better herring. The time has come. If we should check up, coming up the drain, coming up Spiritual Hill, if we should start check the amount of money that gone down the drain, taxpayers' money gone in a Swiss account, taxpayers' money mismanaged, blunder poor people money. If we should check it up, it could build a brand new KPH. It could build some hospitals, some new schools. But what we do is sit down and accept it because what? We're PNP, we're JLP. Jamaica is our rock, and Jamaica come first.
All right.
Go ahead, Conrad.
Let me weigh in on this. First,
General, bless up yourself. Erica,
I am not going to put the emotion into the discussion like I'm seeing my good friend Jeffrey put in. I want to really reason on the subject and so on, so we can get some clarity at the end of the day. And the first point, I disagree that you can't use someone in a portfolio that doesn't have that requisite training, i.e., I don't believe that you have to be a doctor, a medical doctor, to be a Minister of Health. We have, and anybody can come and contradict me on this. Within recent time, Jamaican recent history, one of the best health ministers that we have had is Mr. John Jr. John Jr. is an attorney at law. All of those things, whether it is the National Health Fund, the Drug for the Elderly program, all of those things were conceptualized under John Jr. We saw where the Mandeville Hospital, a modern hospital, was built in Mandeville at the time. Granted, you need more expansion and so on. We saw a new hospital that was built in Maypen, etc., etc. We have seen a lot of things transpired, and I'm not one who going to basically talk about all of them are the same thing and so on. I am prepared to look at somebody on their merit. The truth is that under the leadership of Christopher Tufton, we have seen a lot of mishap. We only need to look at the Cornwall Regional Hospital that is a begging for almost 5 or 6 years now. And I agree with Jeffrey in this case that the amount of money that have extended on the Cornwall Regional Hospital, if that's where he's going, that we could have had a brand new hospital with that amount of money that has been extended so far. So, and also what we have seen under Chris Tufton, maybe he is not listening to his technocrats and he is using his training as a marketer to basically put out there. So what you find in a lot of cases is more marketing, more PR, rather than actual work being done. And as a result of that, there are a number of things that Christopher Tufton is found wanting on. Under his watch, we saw where the babies were pulled, dead babies where bodies were pulled through the street of Kingston. Under his watch, we saw the young lady...
Through the street of Kingston, Mr. Brian? When was that?
Huh?
When was that?
I can't give you the date, but the babies were found...
Through the street of Kingston, Mr. Brian?
Yes. Yes, on the street of Kingston. Dog had the baby on the street.
Did you see it for yourself?
What's he said?
Did you see it for yourself, sir?
If I saw it for myself?
Yes.
I did not go down, but it is public knowledge. It was all over the place.
Did you see it, Mr. Brian?
You hear what I say a while ago?
No, Mr. Brian, Mr. Brian, you can't do that, sir.
Can't do what?
If you didn't see it for yourself, you can't say you did push through the street of Kingston, sir.
Hold on, man. Hold on. I didn't see Jesus when he was on earth.
No. Don't bring the Lord into this. Don't bring God into this.
See him when he was on earth.
No, do not bring God into this. You are saying
we don't have enough time to engage in this kind of banter. So no, make him finish. No, Jeffrey, let the fireman finish. Finish, fireman.
Hold on. This is not a to and fro basis. It is undeniable. Mr. Rattigan, you follow the news, you follow the space. Aren't you aware that dead babies' bodies were found in downtown Kingston in the precincts of the Victoria or KPH hospital there in Western Kingston area? Are you aware of that,
No,
sir?
I'm not aware of that.
All right. Well, I'm sure that our listeners who are listening, they will be able, and watching, and viewers, they will be able to verify that. I don't speak flippantly.
No, hold on 1 second. No, what I'm saying, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it.
Good. And for Jeffrey to ask me if I saw it myself, I think that is quite disingenuous. Really.
No.
All right, hold on, Jeffrey, make him finish. Finish your point, and then we have to move on.
Because there's not everything that I'm going to go and see. The fact of the matter is that the major newspapers in Jamaica carried the story. They reported it. It's all over. It's documented. We can bring it up.
All right, finish up the point, Conrad. Finish up the point.
And so I'm simply saying that we have seen that. We also saw where the young lady, I think her name was Jody, she died. She died in childbirth, right? And one of the reasons for that, she was all over the place trying to get a ward, and a lot of our hospitals would not accept her because they did not have any COVID facility. And the minister at the time gave the assurance to the country that all the hospitals were outfitted with COVID ward, and there was no truth in that. I called him out at that time and so on, but a lot of people probably were willing to give him a pass on that. And I could enumerate many other things that had gone awry under this minister. We saw recently a report that came out from PAHO. The minister gave us paragraphs and lines from that and refused to publish the full report. Why? So all of those things, I'm looking at, and remember now we're talking about Chris Tufton. It's Chris Tufton you asked about, right, sir?
Yes.
So we're not talking about any other minister. So let us stay on point.
Okay. Jeff, you wanna rebut that, or can't hear you?
You know, sometimes when we as talk show hosts to talk things, you know, we must be very neutral in what we're saying.
Well,
And don't come across as if we're political.
no, hear what happened. No, I have to stop you right there, sir. And let's just stick to the issues, and just forget about no. Hold on. Let's just stick to the issues. The question is, the Minister of Health and Wellness. Yeah, he was declared as one of the worst performing ministers by the Observer. I think it's the Observer. And so what we're discussing is whether or not that's true based on empirical evidence, things that we can prove. My feeling is that they said that the Minister Camilla Johnson-Smith, she was the worst. I don't think she was the worst. She's underperforming, but I disagree with them in saying that she's the worst. And I have my own reasons. So now we're talking about Minister Tufton as to whether or not he deserves to be on the list based on what we know. And from what I'm hearing from both of you, he certainly does. He certainly should be on the list, right?
Yes.
Conrad?
Absolutely, and Mr. Rattigan, I am prepared to allow Mr. Tavares to basically, because he accused me, and I'm prepared to have him flesh out what have I said of all the things that I said now that would basically make me political or one-sided, because what I did was to enumerate things that happen under the Minister of Health who you put in the spotlight. And that's how I know to reason. I am not going to be drawing no red.
Well, you know what, Conrad and Jeffrey?
Yes, sir.
Kevin just informed me that there is an article that, dead baby found in downtown Kingston.
Absolutely.
There's an article here. Yeah, there's an article here. Thanks, Absolutely. Kev, for doing the research. But he said, it says shock as dead baby found in downtown Kingston.
I don't.
But Mr. Rattigan, the goodly gentleman said it was dragged through the streets of downtown Kingston.
That's exactly what it is. It doesn't mean that I mean that it was dragged from uptown to downtown.
Right. You know what happened now? We have to. All right, listen. We have to go take a break because and it shouldn't be this way, because we shouldn't be discussing. It shouldn't be reasoning about each other. It should be reasoning about the ministers. So we're going to take a short break, commercial break, and we'll see our audience. They'll hear us, on the ones who are just listening and not seeing us, on the other side of the commercial break. Respect is due. So that's where we are. Now, we have an hour to go before we get the good dentist on. And so what I'd like to do is skip the session about the work performance.
Mr. Rattigan.
Yes.
Before you go on, let me just if you will allow me, let me just simply say this, that one of the things that I will never do, I will never shirk away from my political belief. I am a whole socialist. All right? So let me put that on the board. The fact of the matter is that, but what happened is that my principle, my politics is also undergirded by principle and honesty and respect. And that is one of the reasons why you will never ever hear me refer to people in a certain disparaging way and all that. I will never do it. However, I have my political belief and opinion. It has nothing at all to do with my work. However, I do have a political opinion. I'm not going to be one who hide and stifle it and so on in that way. But I will not bring it into the public. So we're analyzing a point, and that's exactly what I'm doing. We're analyzing, or we were analyzing Minister Christopher Tufton. I point to some issues as to why I think he would fingered as being one of the worst performing ministers.
All right.
I just want to.
All right, good. Somebody just, I think it's Winji. Winji just mentioned in the chat room here that that it says this doesn't support Conrad's argument, meaning the article. It says this report is not linked to the Minister of Health. Tufton can't be held accountable for this action of a citizen. Be that as it may, we're gonna move on now. Here's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna talk about this SSL thing,
and that is nonsense. Nonsense.
Yeah, but we're gonna revisit.
Hold on. No, Ratty. Let us put it. We must refute certain stupidity. The fact of the matter is that we're talking about what happened under the minister's watch. Babies died, and the carcass of the babies' body were pulled by dogs through the streets of downtown Kingston.
Okay. All right. Now, let's move on to the SSL scandal.
I can recuse yourself till you're fool. It doesn't matter to me, Jeffrey.
Hold on a second. What we need to do now
Mr. Rattigan,
hold on a second.
With all due respect to you, sir, I will not allow this one to come and here.
But you are.
Listen.
How about good day, Mr. Rattigan? I'm sorry. I can't speak to this idiot.
All right. Here's what happened now. Let's talk about the development on the SSL. What do you have to report concerning that? Fireman.
Well, Mr. Rattigan, I'm seeing where the SSL saga seems to be deepening as we continue, because we're hearing now that this monies may very well touch the U.S. banking system. We heard from Dr. Christopher Stokes and a program on Sunday on Radio Jamaica. He and two other analysts, they were speaking, and he said from all accounts, he believes that the interest of the United States, and I'm paraphrasing now, the interest of the United States was part because the monies that have been swindled out of SSL seems to have touched the U.S. banking system, which is something that you, as an experienced person, have been saying as well from day one, Mr. Rattigan. Mm-hmm. Also, we're seeing where the SSL management and board have issued a statement recently trying to distance themselves from certain activities. They actually state that they weren't trying to wound up the company, and the Minister of Finance, he is sticking to his guns, so to speak, by saying that indeed he has the facts to bear out that SSL was moving to basically close down the company, or to file bankruptcy, whatever it is. Excuse me, on the exact language there. And what that means, had they gotten their way, then it seems as if then none of the depositors or the investors would have any recourse to basically get back their funds. The ministry moved quickly and they shut that down. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happened in the coming week.
Okay. There is I have it here. There is you're talking about the winding up procedure. That's what you were referring to.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Where they said that back on January 16th, they claimed that they were of the opinion that they were solvent. They meaning SSL, the majority of the board members said that they were of the opinion that they were solvent and they would be able to pay everyone off in 12 months' time. Now, I have a serious, and I'm looking at the I'm looking at the document. I have a serious issue with that because when you get to this point, your opinion doesn't matter. When you get to this point where the scandal is as large as ever there was one in Jamaica, financial scandal that is, that you now have people coming in and looking at your books. So because you have demonstrated over that an extended period of time that you cannot manage your affairs, and so for you to come out now and say, well, it is our opinion that we're solvent and that we can pay off all of our debts in 12 months. I have an issue with that, and so the minister was correct in going to court to prevent this voluntary winding up from taking place. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to disagree with Minister Nigel Clark.
Absolutely, Mr. Rattigan. And remember now, sir, that the truth is that the similar action that SSL board and managers they were trying to take, that's the very reason why the FSC would have sent in a temporary manager to basically secure and to ensure, take over the assets and deal with the thing that way. So there was absolutely no need to do that. And what it shows, there is some underhand tactics that were basically being, I don't think it would be unfair for us to deduce that there was a move for some underhanded tactics there.
Right. So the question is, what does this? Because they issued I think it's a 6 or 7 page response to everything that's going on, and then this showed up. Where do you see this going, as far as the board is concerned, and what's the future of SSL?
Well, just the mere publicity, negative publicity that SSL has received, I really and truly don't see a bright future for SSL. I think the best that will happen now is that there will be a process of seeing how much money can be recovered and so on, how people can be paid out, and basically the whole business of the criminal proceedings and so that will flow from the investigation that now include your former agency there, the FBI. I think that's where the rubber will hit the road. People are looking and saying, will this be just another 9-day wonder, something that has brought to the front and some quote unquote uptown brown people just walk free, as it were?
Okay. I have another document here that I want to share with our listening audience. And this, I think we're going to spend a lot of time discussing this particular document and the circumstances surrounding it. I take it you've seen the April 3rd document that went from FSC over to the Ministry of Finance, specifically to the minister. And first, if we can just backtrack, first the minister was saying that he didn't know anything about SSL coming.
He was loud about that. He was quite boisterous about that, and absolutely very defensive on it.
Right. Then he came back after that opening statement before the media saying that he didn't know anything about this. He came back and he said, well, and I don't know if anyone called him from FSC to say, hey, look, there is a document over in the Ministry of Finance. But he came back and
he did. Yes, he did say someone. He received a call from someone at FSC.
Fair enough. So he got this document, and Winji, you're right, had both not been involved, and it's also my opinion that what we're talking about now probably we wouldn't be at this stage had it not been for somebody as recognized as the Ambassador Bolt. But he came back and he said that somebody called him from FSC and they said yes, or communicated with him and they said yes, there's a document there. And he said he searched with his staff, and then he found this document I'm looking at. And for those of you who cannot see this document, it's been widely circulated on social media. This document dated April 3rd said he saw it, and then this week, a few days ago, he had the chance to be interviewed by Nationwide Radio,
Mm-hmm.
by Mr. Cliff Hughes, to be specific. And
Mm-hmm.
he told Mr. Hughes that there was an investigation that went on in October of 2019, and that it took FSC 6 months to send over the report to him, which is this document. So he said, I didn't know anything about this document until now that it's blown, everything is going on, and I started looking and then I found it. Now, let me just point something out here to people who have not, well, to those of you who have or haven't seen the document. The document says, it's dated April 3rd, and it says, by electronic mail and bearer. Now, my understanding of bearer in Jamaica is that they deliver stuff like same day, and especially something as significant as this, a report concerning 6 financial institutions would have been delivered the same day.
And actually signed for.
Signed for, right. Now, this document is addressed to Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clark, MP, Minister of Finance and the Public Service. It's not addressed to, and it starts out, Dear Minister Clark. It's not addressed to the Permanent Secretary, an Executive Secretary, or some technocrat, or somebody in that ministry. It's specific to this, to the minister. And it says here that they're submitting a report of the finance. They're submitting a report based on their assessment of 6 financial institutions: BPM Financial Limited, Stocks and Securities Limited. That's the one we're interested in. NCB Capital Markets Limited, Jamaica Money Markets Broker Securities Limited. Was it Cygnus Capital Limited?
Yeah.
NCB Capital Markets Limited. Now, it says, if you require further information or clarification, please do not hesitate, blah, 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 blah. Signed by Everton McFarlane. Now, here's a problem, family. Here's a problem that, well, I have lots of problems, but let's start with this. This document, in the reference line, it says that it's referencing an on-site examination report as of March 2020. On-site examination report as at March 2020. So, what's that examination report they're talking about? And let me throw this out to you, Fireman. Does it make sense that they would have he said they started back in October of 2019. And that he basically saying he didn't know anything about that. So why would it make sense then for them to not tell him about the first investigation where they found all these deficiencies, but they would tell him about this one, but that appears to be a corrective assessment where they're saying, we told them in 2019 that here are your problems. And then we're reporting to you now, Mr. Minister, that here are how they've addressed or not addressed the problems. Why would they tell him about this one, but not tell him about the first one?
Yes, and that is why, Mr. Rattigan, a lot of people who are looking on, look at Rebel and saying that here what happened. The ministers, the chronology of the ministers' awareness of the problem with SSL, and the communication with him via FSC, it's just not adding up. And at the very minimum, persons can use whatever language they want. But at the very minimum, I would say that the credibility, especially as it relates to the timelines and so on, certainly the minister seems to be found wanting on this. I won't elevate it above that, but certainly persons who are thinking and looking at the thing with a critical eye would need a little bit more meat on the bone, certainly.
Okay. Now, I was shocked when you said that he didn't do anything about this and blah, blah, blah. But here is something that he didn't do, or he didn't say he did these things. So I'm assuming that because he didn't say them and he was trying to explain why is it that this thing came to his attention rather late, I'm trying to figure out, well, if you're trying to justify that, if you're trying to explain that, then why wouldn't you go further and to say that, listen, even though this thing says by electronic mail, I didn't receive the mail. And not only that, I checked with my staff to see if anyone received it, or the person who would monitor, if someone is monitoring his mail, see if that person saw this and deleted it. Also, I checked to see if this thing is on the server of the on the ministry server. Then I also checked with FSC to see it came from Everton McFarlane to see even though he may be gone, to see whether or not his email sent this thing out, and then check the server over there, because there would have been an entry point, right? And there would have been an exit point, but he didn't mention any of that. He just said that it came to his ministry and that he didn't know about it. And he went on to say that even though it's dated April 3rd, he didn't know about this until I think 12 days later. 12 days later, he found out about this.
And remember now, Mr. Rattigan, that as a result of the minister's pronouncement to say that, listen, nothing was sent to him by FSC and so on, we saw where a career public servant had to terminate his tenure quickly. And it also asked some question of Mr. McFarlane. When the minister basically say that, listen, he received nothing from you, did you nudge the minister and say, but no, minister, I did my job and so on? And with Mr. McFarlane resign now, how that goes, because certainly what Mr. McFarlane resignation would have triggered based on what the minister says. But based on this letter that has turned up now, it shows that Mr. McFarlane had actually carried out his duty at FSC. Am I correct, sir?
I tend to agree with you on that point. And then further, the minister said he stopped short. I mean, it's just riddled with inconsistencies and misdirection, and it wasn't complete, because he said he got this 12 days, I think it said 12 days, 10 or 12 days after the date on the document itself. So it says April 3rd, and I believe he said he received it 12 days later, or he received it on the 12th. That's a bearer one, right? But in any event, the question that Cliff, you should have asked him is that, okay, this is 2020. You received it 10 days, 15, 20 days after. What did you do when this came to your desk or to your attention? He didn't ask him that. And so he was allowed to escape. But I would like to sit down with the minister as a trained investigator and go over all of these documents with him and ask him the questions, the proper questions, because I'm going to follow things to their logical conclusion. I'm not going to let him slip and slide and give me all of this fancy talk, because if you listen to the way he talks, oh, the other thing too, he mentioned that there is a law that says that if once FSC is done with their reports, then they have to be delivered to the minister within, I think, 30 days, within a short time period. And then the minister has to review them. And then he went on to say that it would mean that a review of approximately 500 reports would have to take place, and that no one reasonably expects that he would do that. Well, here's my problem with that. He's been sitting in that seat for about 5 years, right? This problem existed before him. He came in and he knew that there was this problem. He didn't mention anything about this law until now. And then he's saying, forgive me, because I'm only human. You can't expect me to do the 5 months. Well, and then he started giving all kinds of, well, the fact of the matter is that it's your responsibility. You can't, now he's saying that we're going to change the law, so that we can spread this out and other people can look at it and so on and so forth. But look at when he's talking about changing the law. No, when he got in there, he knew that there were 500 reports per year, or whatever the time period was for him to look at. And he said nothing. So I have an issue with him now. Not only that, basically he's admitted to breaking the law. I see where Herb joined us 5 minutes ago. Herb, if you can give us a call, because you wrote something here about the Chinese involvement with SSL, and it's very, very involved. So I'm urging you to give us a call so that we can develop this line of facts here to our listening audience. If you're listening to me, Herb, give us a call, please. The number is 667-369-8569. Again, the number is 667-369-8569. So getting back to this, Fireman.
Rebel. I want to just introduce into the discussion the minister. Let's take the minister at his word. Let's say, here what happened. Fine. This is what the minister said is correct. If that is correct, shouldn't we see some kind of punitive action taken against someone who would have basically led the minister on this wild goose chase, so to speak. Somebody who would have been derelict in their duty. Because so we should actually see his role by way of the action that the minister should have taken. Because if you're the minister, a letter of such import comes into your office and it wasn't brought to your attention, nothing. You knew nothing about it, and now it creates all sorts of bangarang.
Hold on 1 second,
Shouldn't
Conrad.
somebody
Hold on 1
be
second.
held
Hold on 1 second.
accountable?
Caller, go ahead, please. Hello? 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 Herb? We're not hearing from you, sir. And my level is all the way up. Can't hear you. Give us a call again, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was putting that out, Mr. Rattigan. Let's, you
calling
believe...
again. He's calling again. Hold on.
Okay. No problem.
Yes, Herb.
So,
hello?
Can you hear me?
Caller. Yeah, I can hear you now, my brother. Welcome.
Where?
Yes.
Fireman, anybody?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
I'm not hearing it.
I can hear him.
Maybe wonder if the audience hearing. I don't know, because I'm not.
Herb. Find another location and call us. I think you may be in a spot where...
Hello?
Yes. Hello? Yeah, no, he's having some technical difficulty. Hopefully we can straighten it out. But go ahead, finish your point, sir.
Yeah, I was just putting in, on the table that the fact, let's say we believe the minister, right? And because somebody would have fallen down on their job. What action do you believe that there's?
Conrad.
Yes.
Fireman.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. We didn't hear you a while ago.
Yeah, I'm saying, do you believe that there should be any action, any disciplinary action at the very least take place against the person who would have carried the minister wide, so to speak?
Well,
go ahead.
No, I'm getting some interesting comments here from some of the listeners. One very dear friend of mine asked, what are the legal requirements for the FSC to apprise the minister about the operations of companies under FSC watch? I believe that they have to. I believe under the law there is a requirement for them to notify the minister, and therefore this letter would be in compliance with that law. Mm-hmm. Person also says the timeliness of those reports and whether or not FSC has been producing these reports under the law. That's another question. We don't know if they've been doing it consistently and timely under the law. We don't know. And the last one is, and does the minister have a responsibility to update cabinet on these matters? Do you know anything about that, sir?
Well, I can't speak definitively to that, but in truth and in fact, one would take it that, something of this government, it would be par for the course that the finance minister would report to his boss, who is the head of the cabinet, the prime minister himself. Mm-hmm. That would be my take on it at a closer glance. I am not able to pull up any document now that's point to say, yes, this is exactly how it's supposed to go. But that's something that we can basically get onto.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? Here it is that I have a friend who, and the person lives in Jamaica, that they have these very, very probing questions. But when the minister showed up, the media didn't ask him these questions. And that's why I made the point earlier that sometimes in the media and some media houses, they have a tendency to kind of like let people slide. They don't do the necessary follow up. Give me your take on that.
It's called bat up and catch a shubby.
Ah.
In cricket, we usually play this small, with tennis ball, bat up and catch a shubby, kind of soft bowling and so on.
Right.
So I think that's exactly what happened, and we have to wean ourselves of that kind of work in the media, where we're prepared to ask a tough question, irrespective of who the guy or the girl is. Because at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to flirt out the information. And, what we have to get to a point, Mr. Rattigan, to know that the work is not about personality. It's not that I have something against you. As they say, it's not that I have a beef against you. It's not that I hate you, right? I quite like the person, but the hard question will have to be asked, because at the end of the day, that is how you're going to get good governance, one. That is how you're going to get value for the taxpayers' dollars. And that is how we're going to build a society to come even close to the 2030 vision of being the place to live, raise families, and do business.
Well, my same friend here sent me another thing, and I think we should focus on that. The timeline leading up to the Prime Minister withdrawing or closing his account with SSL.
Mm-hmm.
It was shortly after this, and I think he established the account years before. And so
Yes,
one of the
did.
questions that the FBI, I think, should ask him, and I'm sure they will, is they will ask him about insider information or any information he received concerning his account or accounts over at SSL, and what was the basis for this sudden withdrawal, coming on the heels of this letter and further scrutiny. I mean, one has to, you have to suspend critical thinking or even common sense to say, well, the Prime Minister had his account there for years, didn't move it. And then then these rumblings started to happen, including this 2020 letter. And then all of a sudden, he closed the account in 2021.
So what I'm getting from you, Mr. Rattigan, is while you're not ascribing guilt or so on, but certainly as someone who is trained in investigation, as a top investigator, you are saying that at the very least, you believe that there would be question there on the timeline of the closure of the account. So as a result of that, they should have some interest there?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the FBI's involvement in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The minister and I went back and I checked. It's reported, or the headlines made it appear as if Minister Clark was the one who announced that the FBI was coming. But I went back and I listened. I went back and I listened to his talk, and what he actually said was the financial investigative
FID,
that they're the and the fraud unit, that they're the ones who actually requested the FBI to come. So he was just conveying what they had done, but it was reported as if he was the one calling for the FBI to come. Be that as it may, somebody in the government called for the FBI to come. So now the question is, okay, first of all, what's the US's interest in this? What interest is there for the US? I mean, how is it packaged to the FBI for them to come? Because generally speaking, if it's an internal matter, meaning a crime that's local in nature and has no effect on the US government, they're not going to get involved unless they're asked to be involved, right? If they're asked to be involved, then they'll say, okay, on the international cooperation, they will say, okay, we'll help you in certain ways. But then there's a report that was swirling around saying that American citizens too, I believe, that they had invested in SSL and they lost some money, and so they reported it to the embassy, and so the embassy had been looking into this. I can't verify that. But what I can tell you is this. If the FBI, if that organization decides to take up this investigation, Minister Clark is going to rue the day that not that he announced it and that FID and the fraud unit that they asked for it. They're going to rue the day. And here's why. because as trained investigators, they're going to follow leads to their logical conclusion. They're not going to have somebody tell them to stop. And that's why terms of reference is so significant in a matter like this. Because once they come in and they start, it's too late to tell them that they have to stop. They're going to continue looking. And if they find... Let me just finish 1 quick second. And if it's determined that some of these funds, these fraudulent funds, ill-gotten gains, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to describe these funds, if these funds touch the U.S. banking system, never mind if they're sitting in a U.S. bank in the U.S., as long as they touch the banking system, the FBI would have jurisdiction. And so this is going to be opening a can of worms. And so people better be prepared. I was told that the biggest product being sold in the pharmacies these days, Maalox and some stuff for upset stomach and things of that nature. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, but you know, Mr. Rattigan, on the flip side of it, because I like to look at both sides of the issue. On the flip side of it, based on the pronouncement from the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and so on, and other players who are saying that we will let no stone unturned and we want the truth to be revealed and so on, and basically pledging their innocence, etc., etc. Couldn't they be very happy at the end of the day, wherever this investigation reaches, if they are genuine in their pronouncement? So that's the flip side.
Well, yes, they could be genuine if they're innocent. And I mean, if you're innocent, then yeah, you call for anything. You know what I mean? But sometimes we call for things.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but sometimes we call for things. We call for things that we don't expect them because we don't know. We don't know how far-reaching, wide-ranging this investigation will be. So we call for them, thinking that okay, it's gonna be just here, and then the next thing you know, it's this, and then now you're implicated, you're involved. And so you're going, oh my God, why did I call these guys and girls in? So
well, certainly, if that is so, I can understand where people would be very, very unhappy at that point. But I am saying that, you know, let's see, because we hear the word from the Prime Minister, from the Minister, and so on, and they're all basically saying, listen, our hands are clean. We're bringing in the international people to be a part of it. So let's see.
Hold on 1 second. Yes, caller, go ahead, please. Hello? 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 Something is, I don't know. Herb said that he's been trying to call and he's not getting through. And then now I see a call, and that's a New York number. Herb's number is somewhere else. So, yeah. So when you call for the FBI, and then also we don't know what kind of investigation they're asking for. We don't know if it's an investigation where the JCF and the other components of the security apparatus will say, okay, we want to lead it, or the FBI, you can lead it, or we'll do it jointly. We're not sure about that yet. Hold on 1 second. Yes, caller, welcome to Reason with Rattigan. Go ahead, you're on the line.
Yes, hello, Mr. Rattigan.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hearing now. I'm hearing. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hello.
Go on. I was hearing quite well, and it
yes,
just went.
Caller, go ahead, please. Caller.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Mr. Rattigan.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Are you talking about why is it illegal for the Prime Minister to have had an SSL account previously to his prime ministership versus no? Is there something illegal that he's doing?
No, we never made.
Please explain it to me, please.
Yes, sir. We never said that there was anything illegal about that. In fact, it's perfectly legal. We're just questioning the timeline to say that he established this account way back when, and when these things started surfacing, including this letter I'm looking at, that then the money was withdrawn. And so it's reasonable to ask, well, why didn't he do it before? And was he apprised of what was going on? His answers will tell us whether or not he knew about it and then there was something illegal. But at this point, it's just part of the investigative procedure to ask these questions because things just don't seem right.
Let me just jump in there quickly, Mr. Rattigan, if a caller is listening. I want it to be clear again. I am at pains every opportunity that I get to be on any platform I talk. I said that, listen, the Prime Minister, like any ordinary citizen,
information. No, but what crime did you commit? Don't get the money from. What's the violation he's committing?
Caller, hello?
I don't know shit.
Caller. Yes, you're on the air. You're on the air.
Maybe the caller should listen. Should hang up and listen, Rattigan.
Caller, if you're listening, let me just go ahead, the fireman here, and say that we are not accusing. Exactly, we're not accusing the Prime Minister of committing any illegal act. In fact, it's perfectly legal for someone to open an account, whether it was with a regular bank or with a financial house, and to close it at their free will anytime. What we're saying is that based on the timeline and based on the sequence of events, it is entirely reasonable to ask these questions like, what did the Prime Minister know and what was the basis for the withdrawal? Because it just seemed too coincidental that on the cusp of all of these things coming to the fore, suddenly the money is, the account is closed. That's all. But it's perfectly legal for him to deposit and withdraw. It's just that given the set of circumstances that we are faced with right now, it's reasonable to ask the question, did he know about this? Sir, fireman, please.
Yes, I just want to give a little background. Every person here in Jamaica have a right and also have the opportunity to open an investment account. There are some basic minimum requirements, such as, your ID, your proof of address, and most of all, they also ask you for a source of income, source where the source is coming from. So you would supply them with either a letter from your workplace, or if you're doing business and so on, you would show those documents. So once you meet those threshold, you're able to open an investment account, all right? And like any citizen of Jamaica, the Prime Minister has that right, that privilege, so to do. The Prime Minister also have the right and the privilege to withdraw his money from whichever account, put it elsewhere, etc., or just to basically take his money and go to shopping and go spree. He has that right like everybody else. What I'm hearing coming through, certainly from somebody like my friend Mr. Rattigan and other people who are, ceasing investigation, and correct me if I'm going on the right road, you're saying that based on timeline and the whole question that has been swirling around in various quarters, you're saying that at the very minimum, the investigators may have an interest in asking, about the timeline of the withdrawal. Is that what where you're going, Mr. Rattigan?
I am saying that they must, not may, must.
They must.
Hold on, I think the caller is calling back. Hold on 1 second. Yes, caller. You're live on Reason with Rattigan. Hello? Hello? All right. Let me just explain something to the caller. The Prime Minister went and established a company. Oh my goodness. Yes, caller, go ahead. Caller,
I don't know what's
going on here. But let me just remind the caller that the Prime Minister went and he opened he established a company in St. Lucia where he had his two minor sons as. Yes, caller, go ahead. Hello? 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 Hello?
Yes, Mr. Rattigan, I got cut off before. I was wondering, why is it illegal for the Prime Minister to have had his money in an SSL account, and then if he found out there's something wrong with it, withdraw the money? Where's the illegality?
Well, the premise of the question is where the issue is, because the premise says that we believe that there is something illegal about him withdrawing the funds, and we have gone through great length to say that there's nothing illegal about what he's done. There's nothing illegal. Hello, can you hear me, caller?
Mr. Rattigan, I think what must be put into the equation is that what people are saying, and we are not saying that that is so, but what people are saying is that, listen, in terms of the timeline, were there inside information shared? That's why people are asking the question. That's the sole reason why people are asking the question.
Yeah, and then here's another thing. If Usain Bolt did not have an account at that company, chances are we would not be talking about this, and it would not be as big a story as it is. Likewise, if Conrad O'Brien had an account with SSL and he withdrew the funds after this letter, it wouldn't have been a story. Hold on.
True.
Hello, caller. Go ahead, please. You're on the line. Hello?
And I'm sure.
Hello?
I'm
Hello? 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 All right.
Mr. Rattigan, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister, being Prime Minister, being an intelligent person, being a person in the public sphere at the highest level, he quite very well understand why people would be asking these questions, because he know he is not an ordinary Joe. So just like you find Usain Bolt is into this. Once you have certain quote unquote very, very high flyers in being a part mentioned, their name even mentioned, there are certain questions that would flow. As you rightly said, I'm an ordinary Joe. If my name is called and something, and it's not going to get that level of traction that my good friend Wilfred Rattigan, who is a top flight guy, would get.
No. And that's what I'm trying to say is that we're asking about, because it's a prime minister. It's not Conrad O'Brien or somebody else.
Yeah, man.
Hold on, Herb is here. Hold on 1 second.
That's really
Herb?
just the
I'm all right. Can you hear him? Can you guys hear him?
I ask him to speak. No,
Hold on
I'm
1
not
second,
here.
Herb. I see this person trying to reach. Caller, go ahead, please. No, hold on 1 second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes. Yes, go ahead, please. Caller.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello? This is not working. Herb, do me a favor. Call me back on the phone line. The 667-369-8569 line, please.
While Herb come in and that your other person, we can ventilate some that to its
Well,
little bit more.
Let me just add another piece to this puzzle. In response to what the caller said, the one that we had the conversation with about whether or not it's illegal. What's illegal about the Prime Minister establishing and withdrawing funds? No, the Prime Minister established a company in St. Lucia and put his two minor children on the board of directors, right? Now, if Conrad O'Brien had done that, it wouldn't have drawn any attention whatsoever. But because he's a public servant, and he's in a position to encourage people to establish companies in Jamaica, to pay taxes in Jamaica, and yet we find that legally, what he did was legal. What he did was legal, but was it moral? How can you stand there as a leader of a country and you encourage people to establish companies in Jamaica, pay their taxes in Jamaica, live, work, play, everything like that in Jamaica, and then you go somewhere else and you do what you should have been doing in your country? Again, it's perfectly legal, but not so sure that it's morally upright.
Yeah.
Yes, caller, go ahead, please. Hello? 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 Yes. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Herb, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Will?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fireman? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
I hear some sounds.
Yes, can you hear us?
I finally hear you now. Man, I don't know. Is that calling into Fort Knox? You must have a lot of gold there, man.
The goal is all up here, my brother. It's all up here. No, I saw in the chat room where, and we have a few minutes. We'd like to keep you beyond the commercial break, but we have a few minutes before the commercial break, and I was just looking at a comment you made about the Chinese and SSL. Do you care to just give the Reader's Digest version of that to our listeners?
Okay. Let me give you a straight up version. A customer at SSL was impacted by what's going on. One of the 40 or more is of Canadian descent. And that person decided to take their case to an intelligence service. The intelligence service reached out and made contact with some of our folks who do the deep dives. And they're seeing now a clear indication of where monies went from SSL, trace it all the way to Wisconsin in the US.
Wow.
And this is by virtue of a Chinese syndicate. And they are in concert with US DT. That's I sent you if you could read the excerpt from the stuff I sent you, it will explain who USDT is and the fact that they have been losing lots of money recently, lots of their customers' money. They have a version of Bitcoin that they market to the public, and they match the US dollar. The USDT matches the US dollar 1-for-1.
Mm-hmm.
And they've lost over $900 million.
Wow.
So it appears that the investigation now is in the office at in Kingston for HSI. May have escalated to Washington, but they at least are involved, and they know now have a trail to follow.
You know,
So
you know what's interesting? Hold on 1 second, Fireman. You know what's interesting, Herman? We just have, you know what, Fireman? Go ahead, please, because I have a question for Herman. It's going to be lengthy. Go ahead.
Based on what Herb is introducing here now, Mr. Rattigan, is it that you're saying, Herb, that this is even more deeper than we thought initially?
It is much deeper. And so somebody at FID should be investigating right now what is the SSL involvement with the Chinese syndicate. How were they invested in the Chinese version of Bitcoin? All right, that is where they have to be looking, and how were those investments being made? Were there was arbitrary removal of monies from accounts to meet certain demands, and when the USDT started going down, this loss of 900 million US, where was that money coming from? All right, how much of it actually belonged to SSL or any other Jamaican financial institution? I'm sure they made investments with this company,
Mhm.
and I'm certain that they had losses. So with these losses, was Bolt and others made to pay for it?
Mhm.
So this is what they're looking at right now, and I
Okay.
mean that was red hot when I read it. The message it came to myself and another HSI agent,
Mhm.
and my eyes just bulged. And I've been doing research on that particular company to see who they are and where they are, and it's now going to be up to HSI and others, in the
Uh,
Canadian system, maybe CITES.
All right, Herb,
Who
tell you
may,
what. Stick around
yeah,
with us, please. We have to take a commercial break now. We'll be right back.
okay,
Go ahead.
alrighty.
Mhm.
Side of things, I don't have the HSI indicators from any member of HSI, even though we know several people. But this is what the Intel side is coming up with. That it has Chinese markings all over it,
Okay.
right? But I don't want to go much further than saying that if that's the case, then it would be out of their hands. If this is the situation where they did this investment and these massive 936 million is a lot of money to lose or to pull from different people. And Jamaica is indebted to the Chinese on that north-south highway, I believe, over 700 million US dollars,
Okay.
right? So where the links are, I'm not certain yet, but I'm looking. But I need to get the report in my hands before I push this any further.
All right.
But
Hold on.
I wanted to put this out there just in case there are HSI people. Are there any investigators in Jamaica that's able to call into your program and give us a heads up as to whether or not they're looking in the direction of the Chinese?
All right.
Right?
Thanks for that. Good.
And this particular Tether, THER.
All right.
is-
Hey, Herb. Thanks for dropping that bombshell on the program. Stick around, please. Don't go anywhere. We've been rejoined by Jeffrey Tavares. Jeffrey, I see your finger
Yes,
raised.
I was going to ask Mr. Nelson a question. Is it that because it has trace of Chinese involvement with it, that means that the investigators in Jamaica has to hand over everything to the FBI? Is that the case?
Okay, repeat what Jeffrey just said because it's kind of coming
He
in
said because
garbled.
there are connections to China. Is that the reason why the investigation is going to be turned over to the FBI? I think it presupposes that, but go ahead.
There's a strong possibility because it involves international syndicate, crime syndicate,
Mhm.
that would be the case, right?
Okay.
Because Jamaica is not equipped to really do an international investigation. So it's probably most likely that's the reason.
All right. That's one of the reasons, folks, why we have Mr. Herb Nelson Jr. on the program all the time. But because he's going through a little bit of a challenge right now with some other things, we decided not to, I say pester him, but I'm very thankful that he called in. Herb, stick around with us, huh?
Yeah, I'll be here because I'm just waiting right now to go pick somebody up at 7 o'clock. So I'll be here.
Okay. All right. We may come back to you, but right now I'd like to turn the spotlight on Dr. Maurice Miles. In the spirit of full disclosure, let me just tell everyone that he's my personal dentist. He's one of the best. And this man, he's accomplished so much, but I'll tell you this, he's very humble. He doesn't like to talk about his accolades. He speaks very softly, and he's a man of few words, unless you get to really know him. He's not one of those braggadocious type, even though he has every reason to be. A son of the soil, an accomplished dentist in the U.S., and he's also doing some things back in Jamaica, but I'll let him speak for himself. So, Doctor, welcome to the program. Welcome to Reason with Rattigan.
Thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be here, along with some of your guests. But you left out the more important thing.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm a college man.
Okay. Oh, Kingston College.
I'm a college man. So
Fort is forever. Fort is forever.
Not street man.
I can't say Jeffrey don't like that because I'm not smiling.
No.
I'm not a college fan, but it's okay.
No. I am listening to you. Most of my brothers went to KC.
There you go.
Maybe they went with a good doctor. Well, Doc, let me. I know you don't like to talk about yourself, and I admire and I respect that. But let me ask you this for the pleasure of the listening and the viewing audience. Who is Dr. Maurice Miles?
Okay, so one of the basic thing I'll tell you that I am a proud diaspora Jamaica. Went to college in Mississippi, small liberal arts college.
I know the college.
Then I went, yeah. Oh, yes, you obviously could spend some time.
Right.
You were deployed there, I would say. Right. It's like a whole different country. And then I went to Howard. So I followed the typical Caribbean Jamaican road to become whatever professional that choose to be. End up staying in Maryland, have a private practice. Been in practice for over 15 years. What led me to be in your program is some of the things that I've been fortunate or blessed to get involved with. A couple years ago, I was appointed by the governor of Maryland to be on the dental board. The dental board is the equivalent of the Jamaican Dental Council, and I kind of throw that in there because we're going to talk about some of that. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was the first, since we're talking about these things, I was the first Jamaican to be president and first person of color to be president. And I was probably was too early. I hadn't done enough time in professional dentistry to be that head of the game, that top of the mountain, if you will. So it caused me to learn very fast. Mm-hmm. So while doing that stint, I was approached by one of my colleagues in Jamaica to help them out some stuff in dental. So as a result of being on dental board, I actually sit on a couple national and international dental association in America. The ADA, the American Board of Dental Examiners. I am the actual treasurer. That's the largest testing agency in dentistry in the world. So just a few of my things. I have a plethora of stuff, as well as, don't like to talk about that thing. Mm-hmm. One of the proudest thing I've done, though, Will, is what I've been able to accomplish or start or get moving in Jamaica in terms of oral health.
Well, how did you tell us in layman's terms then, how did you get involved in oral health in Jamaica? Because you're a dentist in America and you could make tons and tons of money. You didn't have to go back to Jamaica. So what drove you to go back and get involved in oral health in Jamaica?
So I had a lot of influential, well-off people who could afford to come to me in Maryland to get what they thought were extensive dental work. And some of it was extensive, but some of it is what I would consider to be routine type stuff. And so while having a patient in my chair, they expressed some concerns about some of the work that was done in Jamaica and if I could help them, just casually, right? And that person happens to be family member of one of the most influential medical persons in Jamaica. So this is just an organic. As that is happening simultaneously, the then president of the Jamaican Dental Association, I'll call his name, Dr. Jeffrey Meeks, reached out to me because he had some concerns with the way dentistry was occurring in Jamaica as it pertains to unauthorized practice and public safety, not so much access. While that's happening, one of the school's dean also reached out to me, and this was happening within days of each other. So it's like the stars were aligned and it kind of happened. So my first visit to Jamaica, I went to, and at the time I didn't know that we even had one dental school, much as two, right? So that's full disclosure. So when I went, I got a tour of one of the schools, and I felt what they were asking me to do was beyond my capability to do at the time, since I wasn't on the boots in Jamaica. But it was a serious problem. And I thought if they had two dental schools coming out, and we had all these new grads coming out of dental school, then how can I best help oral healthcare in Jamaica? And so pretty much what I did is took all the stuff I did in the US and bring it to Jamaica. So what is that? Every dentist who graduates in this country has to take a licensure, a clinical licensure boards to practice in the US. What I did was to take that standard to Jamaica, got it passed as law, got it passed in Parliament. And now in Jamaica, the dentist that graduate takes the same exam I took, same exam any dentist in America, in North America and Canada took, to be able to practice in Jamaica. So what that did, it elevated and it proved to the rest of the world and to Jamaica that the education and the teaching that they were getting were at least on the same minimal level that the U.S. Public was getting. That was a big deal. It was a hard fight. As a diaspora, you know, when you go down there to help, you're not a Jamaican anymore. You're a foreigner.
We know.
Right? and so I had to battle with that. But it was, one thing I learned with all the stuff I do in the U.S. is that you have to be able to sit at the table and compromise. So as a result, Jamaicans, there's also a Jamaican that sit on the American Board of Dental Examiner that actually has a position on the board that directs how dentistry is going to be practiced and tested in the United States. Jamaica is the only country, or it's only territory outside the United States that actually has a position on that board. And that's something I fought for. That's something I work hard. And I'm happy to say that now Jamaicans, even the ones that weren't on board, kind of embraced it. I spent last week, the reason I couldn't be a program last week is we were at the University of Penn administering an exam, and there were a couple of Jamaicans there that was also doing the same thing. So it's a matter of pride for me. The testing agency comes to Jamaica twice a year. We test students from both dental schools, and there it's the same exam. It's not watered down. It's not a Jamaican version. It's the same exam that Howard takes, Harvard takes, UPenn takes. And so for me, it's a pride that we have pretty good educational system. We have works to do. I have dreams that I would love to accomplish down there, but that's kind of in a nutshell.
Well, the thing is, you graduated from one of the top dental schools in the country. I believe when I was attending law school, I had heard, because I used to live behind the dental school on U Street, that and I think I saw it somewhere, some literature somewhere, that Howard Dental School was ranked like in the top 5, I think, in the country at the time.
Yeah. At the time, and look, I would tell you this. Here's my. I was fortunate that I had parents who could afford to send me to college, and then I got a scholarship. What was happening in Jamaica at the time, prior to 2010, is that only the Jamaicans that could afford it, right, could come to the United States, as it's any professional education to get educated. And most of them weren't coming back. But the ones who came back kind of sat on the top of the heap, which was really a concern for me. So before 2015, there was about 160 dentists in Jamaica, 160. But at the time, 2.5, Jamaican population is a little bit under 3 million. You know where 150 of them are located?
Kingston.
Right? And so that was the real problem. Now, if it wasn't for benefactors and people who come to Jamaica every summer to really donate dental care, I think we'll be in another problem. I don't think that's sustainable. I think we need to, and we have the ability to take care of our own, just need a little bit more vision. And we need more of our professionals to really, we don't have an access to care issue anymore, right? Because we went from 160 to 420 new dentists. Every year, Jamaica's putting out at least 20. So we have an increase of ability to get oral health care. The access isn't improving because only a small amount of people actually go into public service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we've moved the needle a little bit. We need to get out of Kingston. We need to get to the rural areas. We need to be able to take care of that. That's kind of my passion.
Well, before I open it up to the panel here, and Herb is on the line, let me ask you this. You know, I when I was growing up in Waterhouse, we had one guy, a dental technician, and he used to make plates, right? But he was like the resident dentist. Any dental problem, them say him name Course Up. That's what we used to call him. Them say, go check Course Up, man. Course Up will take care of your dental problem. And sometimes you see people come out and face twist up and things of that nature. People cry for peeing and all them. So what's your experience with that? And what would you suggest? Because this happened in Kingston, you know. So what have you experienced and how would you address these issues?
So I would tell you that that is practicing as unauthorized practice, what we call it here in the States. And it still happens here. The problem is, I'm going to tell you a number since you bring it up. You're right.
Call it quack here in Jamaica.
Yes, quack.
We call it
Quack in Jamaica,
quack.
right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the dentistry, the plates isn't a big problem. It's oral surgery. So 60% of the people that go to quacks are getting some type of extraction. And if any of you have a teeth extracted, you know it can go south in a second from somebody who's trained, much as somebody who's not trained, not to mention the infection, the post-operative problems, and not to mention undiagnosed issue that may exist prior to a tooth extraction. So that's the reason why I got to Jamaica, is that they needed help with the unauthorized, i.e. quacks that were in Jamaica. We have to look at the Dental Act. The Dental Act is the key. The minister, that sits under the portfolio of the Minister of Health, that in turn sits under the chief dental officer under the Minister of Health. Our Dental Act in Jamaica is obsolete. It never anticipated more dentists. It never anticipated growth. The need help. I'm more than willing to. I've written a few of those and gotten a few legislation passed. But here's a real problem, Will, and you'll get this. The crime in Jamaica is so high, right? The way this would work is we have to go get the Minister of Health to contact the national, the police, the commissioner, security,
National Security Minister,
national security, to bump these up as a health care crisis. It's not a misdemeanor. Putting somebody's health care and life in jeopardy is a serious crime. So if the Dental Council can get it bumped up, now we can have the people being prosecuted and being given jail time if it's such. But let's be real. If you're trying to catch scammers and murderers and pickpockets, this doesn't seem like a big problem, but in fact it is. And so that's the issue. Our Dental Act has to be increased. It has to be bumped up. I have ways of how I think that could happen, but it would have to be driven by the public in Jamaica. And I don't know, in the public in Jamaica, think your guy in Waterhouse was an angel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And him things an angel because him take out my teeth and take out my right teeth and give me a teeth.
Yeah.
So it's not a crime to them.
Right.
Until undiagnosed oral cancer, until them break them jaw, until them get infected, until it's a serious thing, right? Now the big thing, ironically, what I got called for in Jamaica by one of the most prominent dentists down there, is their concern about fake braces.
Ah,
And if you read the Jamaican paper, they're not talking about the oral surgeon and all that. It's a fake braces, right? That gets headline. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and assume why fake braces get more attention than oral surgery and all of that stuff, but that's where the money is, and that's a problem, right? And so we have to look at the laws. The laws have to change.
okay.
But I'm not living in a dream world where I'm going to tell people don't go to Bus Up or whatever my name for giving my plate when them teeth fall out. So it's a serious problem.
And then course up, not boss up.
So
All right, Jeffrey, go
Boss up.
ahead. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So
Doc, good evening to you.
good evening, sir.
The question I want to ask you is, so the school up by UWI, the dental school up by, not really up by UWI, not by UWI, by UTEC.
Arthurwind.
Yes, Arthurwind Drive. They, I've been to them,
Yeah.
and there's some Cuban doctors there when I was in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Some excellent Cuban doctors. So you're saying to me is that the students who are there, whatever education they get in Jamaica, they can just come to the United States and work with that education? No?
Well, let me explain to you. That's part. So in the U.S., to get a U.S. license, separate. Every state in the United States is sovereign.
Right, I
So
know.
every state has different rules, right? So a U.S. graduate has a three-prong component. They graduate from a CODA accredited school, which is an American accredited school. They have an accreditation system that accredit all dental school. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to mention this because I'm going to come back to it. And they just accredited their first dental school outside the United States in Saudi Arabia. Hold that point 1 second. So when I graduated from Howard, I graduated from a CODA accredited school. Then I had to take part 1 and part 2 of a national boards. Everybody takes that. And then I have to take the licensure exam that Jamaica has. What has happened with some of the Jamaicans that have left UTEC or UE, and they reach out to me, and now they're in the United States practice or doing residency, is that they have to take the part 1 and part 2 in national boards, and they already have the clinical boards. And so Jamaica is missing the CODA accreditation, right? Now, different states have different ways of getting in. So there's 6 or 7 states, and I probably shouldn't have said this. Florida is one of them, right? That makes provision of foreign grads. And one of the provision that the Jamaicans would have to do if they want to go to Florida is that they would take the part 1 and part 2 of the boards, 1 year residency, and that's it. They don't need that CODA accreditation. There are others, Texas and Wisconsin and Ohio.
Yes. Another question. Would you recommend, well, based on the examination of the person's mouth, you would recommend them to have implants or just dentures?
You mean when they're doing the boards?
No.
Me.
In the clinic now, clinical question now.
Right.
If a person come to you,
Right.
you will recommend to them either they have either have an implant or dentures, based on the their mouth.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on their health. It depends on how much bone they have. It depends. Sometimes doing nothing is an option, right? Because I have patients that come in there and they have money and they have implants that don't have a bone. So when we say we have to send you to oral surgery, if we take bone from here, bone from there, it's not a reliable way to get the treatment. So it just depends on every case. Now, to answer your question, implants are very popular now. They're very common. They're very predictable. They're definitely easier to do. They've come down in cost. And so implants are becoming routine dental options for everybody instead of dentures. It's definitely better than a denture.
It is.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Conrad.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, Doc. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. All right. As someone who served in the hospital system, I served as vice chairman for hospital board and another board at other hospitals. I believe that one of the things that we have in Jamaica is the lack of education. And you can tell me if this is the experience that you're finding. When I say lack of education, I mean public awareness. In that to date, a lot of people who goes to the quote unquote quack, as we call them, they are not aware that these people are not real dentists, because a lot of people don't make that distinction. And I think that is where the rubber really hits the road. It's not that someone would not say, all right, I'm going to be putting down a little each week or each month in order to get good dental care. But they don't know that the man who is operating a dental lab, so to speak, they're the one who make the dentures, because even the doctor like yourself, you normally have one of those persons, or they have some of those persons within their practice who will do the denture work. Yeah. And that's where I find the problem is, because to date, you can't tell some people who are out there that, listen, somebody who is practicing in that way, they are not a dentist. And I believe the education process, the public education I'm talking about, not the clinical education or the theory in the dental school, but the public education to make our people aware that, listen, a dentist must meet a certain criteria. You must be looking in the office to see the certificate there, etc., etc. What's your take on that?
100%. 100%. That's that. I think that would fall on the Minister of Oral Health in Jamaica and the Minister of Health. I'm sure Minister Tufton heard this. He would tell you he has tons of solution for that. But education is the key. But I want to make a point. A lot of these, a significant amount of percentage of the unauthorized quackery that's going on is people that have minimal dental treatment, dental education, which means them working in a dental office. They may or may not be a dental tech in a while, so they think they know. And so my real concern is, I'm going to educate you, but how am I going to get you to realize that there's a difference between a trained professional, board certified profession versus, the guy who's going to make you a plate? It's education, right? Education, everything, and that's a public. I think the Minister of Health on the Oral Health Department is pushing. They have tons of clinics. I want to say, don't quote me, I will correct this if I'm wrong. They have about 15 to 20 clinics in rural areas that people can go to, but they need to know that, right? And in those clinics are trained Department of Health professionals, along with dental students who do their rotation through there. So there's access for them to have, but if you don't know it's there, it might as well not be there. So that's getting
Good. I'm going to share some experience with you. I shared with Mr. Rattigan, Rebel, earlier this week when he told me he was going to have you on the program. Right. I have a brethren, good friend. He is a DDS. He studied in Cuba. Right. All right. We also have another friend. He is, I think he trained, went to a dental auxiliary school in the US, but it was really to do plate work and so on, that kind of work. And we were out one weekend having a drink, and we're referring to the guy, say, for the purpose of discussion, let's say doctor whatever, right? And I said, okay. I said, what happened, Dr. J? And our brethren now said, what, all the while me call him doc? I no call me doc. And my brethren, who is a trained doctor now, the DDS, had to say to the man, say, brethren, with all due respect. So I'm saying that even persons who are doing this kind of thing, it's as if they are so naive. Or I really don't know, because how could you know that, listen, or you should know that the man had gone to dental school, trained for so long, he's a doctor, right? Because a lot of people don't even understand that pretty much a dentist is a doctor is based on the specialization, because the initial part of the course is,
right. Exactly, true. Because everybody in the community call him Doc. No, I'm going to simplify it, and that's a real problem. So here was my big concern with COVID, with the advent of COVID and coming around, and Jamaica has an increased number of oral cancer, an increased number, and the increased number is increased in the young people. It's a different topic for a different. Mr. Rattigan can have on an MD with the increase of HPV virus, that type of stuff. Trained professional oral health professionals are capable and ready to diagnose and treat situations like that. Somebody who taking out your teeth not going to. We smoke a lot in Jamaica. We drink a lot. A lot of your medical issues and disease, the first place to show up is in the oral cavity.
Absolutely.
And Will would tell if he comes to my office, he might overhear me talking to somebody about your tongue look this big, do you snore, do you have sleep apnea? It's stuff. Look at your blood pressure. And so it's not just, we have to change Jamaican mentality to think a dentist who's a doctor just pulling teeth. We're treating your body. Your teeth don't float in your head. We actually have to go in there and manipulate and treat and do systemic stuff. And so and in Jamaica, the Jamaican public need to realize that a DDS or a DMD is your first line of defense with most of these things. If you take your oral health serious and you see your DDS at least twice a year, right? You're supposed to.
Absolutely.
And you only see MD when you can't come out of your bed. So the person you see twice a year is more likely to catch, diagnose, and refer versus somebody you see once every 5 years.
Somebody has a radio on, or some kind of transmission is coming through. Can you just turn it down, please?
You mentioned. Sorry.
No, hold on 1 second, Doc. Just perusing the chat room here, I see where one of our listeners says money plays a real factor to turn to uncertified practitioners. And it says, Doc, you are right with the increase in access to certified practitioners. Person also says, this is causing communities to now appreciate the value in prioritizing dental care. Thanks for your contributions. Now, let me just throw this out to you, Doc, and then I'll come back to Conrad. I have a friend, a client actually in Jamaica. He went to get an extraction done. And apparently it's an established dental practice in Kingston. He went and the dentist wasn't there. The hygienist said, don't worry, I can fix this thing for you. I see the problem. And the hygienist proceeded to extract the wrong tooth. And the guy, he got infected, and infected real bad, that he ended up in the hospital. Now, the question I want to ask you is a legal question. It's not so much a dental question. In Jamaica, I've been told, and I've seen it, that lawyers don't sue lawyers. It's like a collegial atmosphere where they can't stomach that. They just don't do that, right? And I've been told that they don't sue professionals, like a dentist, for example. First of all, Jamaica is a small country and everybody knows everybody. And if you're a professional, they hang out in the same clubs, the same, sometimes they're even married to each other, right? What do you say to somebody like that who has been injured and is now in a position where he's trying to seek relief, including legal relief? Would you suggest that person then seek out legal counsel to move forward, given the history of not suing dentists in Jamaica?
Let me go back a little bit. I'm going to give you the answer to that question. One of the concerns I had while I pushed for this American board to come to Jamaica is not because, as they said before, we're bringing white people to come tell if we're good or not or whatever. Is because back in the day, it was about 3 or 4 people given dental license in Jamaica, right? It wasn't even a gang of 8, it was a gang of 4. And so the playing field was not level with who would get a dental license. And you have to remember, prior to 2010, the dentists that came to Jamaica were from 2 places, Cuba, Russia, the United States or Canada, mainly a few from England and India. If you knew the right people, and I'm probably going to get stone when I go back to Jamaica. If you knew the right people, your avenue to get your license back then wasn't very hard. All right. So if you're looking at the Dental Council, which is going to answer your question, the Dental Council prior to 2020, it was the same 20, 30 people who hung out in club, party together, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking somebody who rightfully so governs and regulate the system to regulate the guy or girl who they hang out with. It's a hard burden for them to bear. And so that's the issue you have. I don't know. I think with the new pool of younger dentists, as they get moved up in the chain and can have impact on the regulatory system, you might see that change. But you're right. So when it goes to the board, right, and Conrad and me hang out and play football and drink beer, and something come in front of me, I can't recuse myself, because that means I'm going to recuse myself from every single issue. I'm not saying that there need to be an omniboard to watch over that, but we're not, if we don't prosecute the quacks or the unauthorized practice, we're not going to get any traction, right? And so, but in the specific case you're talking about, that's not even a dentist, it's a hygienist.
Right.
Now, the dentist is going to be held responsible at some point because it happened in his place of business.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to go after two people, the hygienist and also the dentist. So you have to, again, look at, it all comes down to the Dental Act. You have to look what it says and how we can beef that up to let people notice the serious things.
All right.
But you're right, I've gotten questions with that, and it doesn't go anywhere.
All right. Conrad, you had your hand up. Then
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
All right. What just by way of experience again, Doc, and just to delve into the same question that Mr. Rattigan, Wilfred asked, the rebel. That's his name, you know that? He's a rebel.
Okay.
All right. So the rebel to add a little bit more meat to what happens in Jamaica, Doc, and still continue, is that a lot of people are not aware that there are certain remedies as it relates to the taking out a lawsuit, because we are not a litigator society, as it were, like in the United States. And I think what happened, that is just becoming embedded into the system. And again, it dovetails into the earlier point that I made about education. You know, the public education, the awareness that people know that, listen, a man, you go to a dental practice, a hygienist perform this and mash up your mouth and things like that. There's a recourse. A lot of people just take it and say, boy, there's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. Because again, we are not so aware. And it's a good thing that somebody like yourself, that you're really into the system now, and, you know, they listen to you and probably put more into the education process. Is just like, and this is a little bit off the map, but it's just like what we're seeing here in Jamaica now. We have seen where a new traffic regulation rolled out, and the government of Jamaica promises that that would have been accompanied by a major public education. To date, we haven't had any.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
It's hard.
Jeffrey, go ahead, please.
Doc, well, actually, someone said to ask you this question. Do you have a practice in Florida?
No, I practice in Maryland, Bowie, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she wanted to come and see you.
Well,
She
Doc,
can fly.
Doc, I'm getting a whole bunch of
the trip.
inquiries about you, but they're on the personal side, so I'll just leave them. I'll leave them for when we see you. When we see you, you talk. But
So,
the two questions. One is somebody is asking veneers or crowns, which is better. That's one question. And the second question is, it just so happens that my friend, my client, the person who got the wrong extraction, is actually listening to the program and send me a message and say, I won't call him. Well, I can't call him name because it's a common name. Patrick, big up yourself. You and your wife. Love and like life. It says, if the person was overdosed with Novocaine, what steps can be taken? Can you be overdosed on Novocaine?
that's going to be, you can be overdosed by Novocaine. I don't think, not being there and not seeing Patrick's level, I doubt Patrick was overdosed with Novocaine. Patrick would probably tell me he was numb for a couple hours, probably even next day it feels like it. Overdose, toxicity to epinephrine and Novocaine normally shows up differently. So I'm going to say, Patrick, without knowing your medical history before and after, I'm probably going to say not likely. However, ask Patrick if he's still having numbness from the extraction.
Patrick, you're listening, so you can text me and then I'll ask the doc. But doc, isn't it possible also that when they injected him with the Novocaine, they hit a nerve, and that could have caused a problem? Because that happened to me, not with you, of course, but
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. It can happen, but that usually goes. That's why I'm saying if he has prolonged numbness, that can also and with a trained professional. If I was going to do it and I saw that your tooth was close to your nerve, one of the things you'll sign is that having paresthesia permanent or long lasting is possible. So you're going to what we call, consent, conform consent. You sign off. So if it does happen, this comes with implants or anything I do. If it does happen, you can say, "No, boy, doc, you did tell me, I never expect it to happen. But so what we're going to do next?" I'm going to say, "Well, here are options." Now, if the person is not trained and they go to yanking stuff, then stuff like that happens.
He said,
right?
He responded, he said, no numbness, loss of taste, and dryness of the mouth.
So here's what I want Patrick to do. I don't know how long ago that was, but he needs to go see. And it happens. It happened after that.
And he also lost weight, lots of weight, he said.
So tell Patrick he needs to go see a trained professional. He might not feel comfortable going back to that specific office, but off air I can tell him where he needs to go.
All right, Patrick, you hear what the doc said? Him going to give me the a referral for you, and then we're going to fix you up because we want you back on track, All right? All right. Go ahead.
Let me ask a question.
Oh, hold on one second. Herb, hold on one second. Herb has a question. We haven't heard from Herb. Hold on one second, Conrad. Conrad, hold on one second. Herb, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Doc. Herb Nelson. Pleasure to hear your presentation. Doc can hear everything clearly. But my question is a key one. Amalgam use. Is Jamaica and Jamaican dentists still using amalgam in people's mouths? That's part one of the question. Part two is, how do they handle putting it in or digging it out to replace it? Considering the water system, it can get into the water system and cause a lot of problems. And if people are wondering, amalgam is 50% mercury. So go ahead, Doc.
Why? Well, I feel like you set me up today, boy. You have all the hard people come on.
No.
Herb, I appreciate the question. Here's what I'm going to say to you. I don't. In America, the use and removal of amalgam is highly regulated. And so again, if we want to talk about bringing Jamaica to the 21st century, that's a lot of stuff we have to look at. I would tell you, I personally don't use amalgam. Educational system in America is such that it's not only a health issue, it's a consumer issue. So nobody wants amalgam in their mouth because it's not pretty, it's silver, blah blah blah. And so I don't have to worry about that. I do, by law, have to have an amalgam separator hooked up to my line system. It's mandated by the state, and that would answer all your concerns you have about it getting in the water system and removal. Now, I will tell you that the application and packing of amalgam, the dentist is the person that is more likely to be affected by that. Now, I'm not going to get into the holistic part of it and amalgam is this, amalgam is that. I would tell you, in situations, there are some situations I wish I had an amalgam, but in situations where it's driven by socioeconomic reasons, amalgam is still a viable restoration that will last and get the person to where they need to go. And I think the U.S. military still put amalgam in.
Doc, one quick thing there. The question about veneers or crowns, that's still outstanding. And then then somebody asked, is there a statute of limitations on bringing a case against a dentist that's in the Dental Act? How long does it take before you can?
I was up to pull the dental act before I came on. I don't know, but I can get that information and get back to you. I would say statute of limitations probably 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
But I can find that out for you.
All right. Veneers or crowns?
Veneers are crowns. The more conservative restorations always better. Veneers are popular nowadays because they're done for aesthetic reasons. Crowns are usually reserved for full coverage, which is it as a result of decay or pathology that requires full coverage. So if you can get a veneer, it's just coverage of the front of the tooth. It's better, lasts longer. But crowns are pretty good to say. Just depends. So if that person is looking for cosmetic work, I would tell you veneer is probably a better option. I personally do what's called 3/4 crowns. Without getting into the clinical reasons why I do that, it just lasts longer. There's a wraparound on the backside of the tooth, so it's more secure, but it's not a full crown.
Okay. Conrad, you wanted to say something?
Just quickly, you mentioned in terms of, this is a purely health question. What would a dentist be looking for, or give you an indication in terms of the tongue? What would you want to say? And the tongue, what would it indicate?
So personally, so my hygienist does pretty much the screening before I get in there, and she typically check for a lesion in the tongue, any abnormality, white lesion in the tongue, white lesion in your mouth, anything that's unusual. She does a full lymphatic check, so she palpitates your throat, your tongue, inside your mouth, check your lymph nodes, and if anything is outstanding, then we deal with that. I would tell in 15 years, I've diagnosed one as recent as 2 months ago. I diagnosed 3 oral cancer.
Wow.
Okay. 3 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're one of those 3 people,
Yeah.
right, it means something. One was a non-smoker, 85 years old. We keep treating it, and I keep biopsying it, and I referred it to a specialist, and the specialist said we biopsy it, and I said to the specialist, I don't care. I biopsied 2 times. You did it 3 times. I'm going to do it 1 more time. It came back squamous cell cancer. That patient now is getting therapy and treatment for that. So you have to know what you're looking at, because a serious thing. Also had a young female HPV virus oral cancer. Her symptoms was, my tongue is on fire. The side of the tongue, it hurts. When I drink something with a little bit of anything, my tongue burns. You wouldn't think that would be because she's fall outside the range, and she wasn't a smoker, and she wasn't a big drinker. But that's the reason you go to a trained professional. And unfortunately, MD's not trained to do it. So you actually need your oral healthcare provider.
What